How you doing? I hope everyone is well. I hope everyone is keeping safe out there, taking care of themselves. Before I start, I first want to say my prayers go to the U.S. citizens, 17 U.S. citizens who were kidnapped in Haiti. I hope the negotiations are going well and they'll be soon released to their family. Unfortunately, this is how life is because they went to Haiti to do something good, and unfortunately, they end up being kidnapped. Hopefully, that will also bring awareness to the situation in Haiti and also tie up with the Haitian coming in the border here to show that there is a real concern. That's why the people are leaving their country, not because they want to leave, but because they have no choice or they feel they have no choice. That being said, I want to talk today about continue the discussion we were having last week in regards to Haitian identity and Haitian crisis identity, and I want to discuss today who we are. Last week we discussed where are we from, and today we are going to discuss who we are as a people. As Haitian people, we are from African descent, but because we were enslaved, I should say, and because we were colonized, even though we are from African descent, we do have our own take on how we do have a different ways. Yes, we most of our culture is from Africa, but Haiti is different in certain ways because we do have French influence, we do have British influence, and we do have Spanish influence, and of course we have the Native American influence in our culture. So that makes us a little bit different, and also that brings me to the point I want to discuss today. Who are we as a people? As a people, we are Haitian of Vodou, and Vodou is the soul. I always say that, I cannot say enough, is the soul of the Haitian people, and everything we do it as a Vodouisant, which is a practitioner of Vodou. A lot of people might say, well, not all Haitian practice Vodou because some Haitian are Catholic, some Haitian are Protestant, and some Haitian are Muslim even. But even if Haitians are Muslim or some Haitians practice are Catholic, they associate themselves as Catholic, or they go to church to Protestant church, but their behavior in everything they do, it's from Voodoo. And today I want to prove how, because I say it a lot, but a lot of people don't understand what I'm saying because it really doesn't make sense. It doesn't resonate with a lot of people when they know they're Protestant and I'm saying all Haitians are Vaudouisants or all Haitians are Vaudou, from Vaudou culture. What I mean by that, 75% of Haitian population don't have access. That's one example. They don't have access to medical care. Okay, the regular medical care, Western medical care, what we know here in the United States. Most Haitian in the countryside, in the urban area, they don't have hospitals in the urban areas. If you go to, for instance, in the deep root in Haiti, where I live in Haiti, which is Saint Michel de la Talaye, there's no hospital in La Lomas, where I live, in that little area. There's no hospital because the hospitals, you find them in Gonaïve, which is the main town. And that's how the system is set up in Haiti. They set up the system where the big town have the hospitals and the little towns, the urban area, they only have clinics. And there's certain disease you have, a clinic doesn't suffice. Is not enough. And the clinic they have are not real clinic. They're just a structure. But there is a lot of time there's not even a nurse, a real nurse in there, or a doctor. Sometimes it's just somebody in there, and when you go in there, there's no service really because it's just something they put there just to say they have a clinic. Because the government is really absent in those rural area in Haiti. So these people, how do they get their medical care? they go to Boko and Mabo. Okay, the Boko is what people will call a an equivalent to a priest, but is not a priest. Boko is not a priest. A Mabo is not a priestess. It's just a Mabo. A Mabo is a Mabo. Um it is just a Mabo. There's no other way to explain it. It's somebody who practices voodoo, and it's somebody who also help the people in general in what they need, because that same Mabo or Boko is the doctor. Because when somebody has some kind of disease, a lot of time they end up there, because that's who gives them the help they need, the medical care they need. um they're also the psychologists when they have problems, because sometimes people have personal problem at home and they don't have anyone to talk to, or they think somebody's doing them harm. They go to the Bako, and that's the person they discuss their problem with and give them some kind of guidance. It's also the teacher a lot of time, because a lot of Boko in have the way the structures is, you go in the town, in the Boko house, and you find different little homes. And those different little homes, there's different family living there. That's what they call a laku. And different family living there, and the Boko live in that same yard. And they're not necessarily same families. It's just like they are all people from the area, and they probably all voodoo practitioners, but they're not related to the Boko, and sometimes they can also be related to the Boko, and they all live in this area, and that's how, and they have children. And that's why I say sometimes the Boko is sometimes a teacher, because he's the one who passed on the culture. When I mean teaching, and I'm talking about traditional teaching, like high school teaching, I'm referring to passing on the culture. He's passing on down the culture to those children and the youth in the area. So 75% of the population use the Boko and Mambo for their medicinal purposes, psychology, therapy, the teachers, and like I said, they pass down the culture. So in that sense, yes, they are very important in Haitian society, which in turn says voodoo is very important in Haitian society, because they are voodoo practitioners. But for a long time, since 1915, since the American occupation, it was never allowed for, it was an issue for Haitian to practice voodoo the way they want to. Okay, for instance, they have these anti voodoo campaign the the United States was doing in Haiti from 1915, and it continued well on to 1940s. But the Catholic Church perfected that campaign in 1941, when they were doing the anti voodoo campaign, or the anti they call it anti, I forgot the term they use exactly, but it's an anti-voodoo campaign, anti-superstitions campaign. That's what they call it, anti-superstitions. Sorry, campaign. And from 1941, the Catholic Church was doing it till 1942. Haitian might know this better as rejeté, okay, but anti superstition campaign. And what they were doing is they were enlisting people, not priests, but Catholic members, people who are a member of the Catholic Church. They were enlisting them, and they were telling them to go in anyone they know who's a voodooism, to kill them or destroy their home fort. The home fort is where they put all their stuff, like their religious symbol, their religious totem, everything they have, they put it in their own fort. And they were telling those people to go there and destroy these people, kill them, intimidate them to stop practicing voodoo. But like I said before, even though Haitians are Catholic, okay, even though they are Catholic, the behavior they do Catholic in Haiti is different the way they do it here in the United States. In Haiti, if you go to a Catholic church, you're gonna see the same instrument they use in a voodoo dance, a voodoo ceremony. They use it inside of the Catholic church. They use drum in Haitian Catholic church, because part of it is it's a form of politics, because they know to keep them coming, the Haitian like the sound of drum, and they're gonna come because the musics are played like in the rhythm of voodoo. Even though it's Catholic church, but when you go in there, the musics are played in the rhythm of voodoo, which is different from Catholic church here, where the songs are more mellow, the melodies are more soft and calm. In Haiti, the melodies are more upbeat, and more in the rhythm of voodoo. Okay, that's like, it's like voodoo is like entwined with those religion, even though people believe they are Catholic, but the way they think is very like a voodoo practitioner. Because for instance, a Catholic Haitian will tell you that for November 2nd, they have to go in the tomb of their family to visit them. November 2nd is the Day of the Dead for Haitians. And that's part of voodoo. It's the Gede Day. But Haitian who are Catholic, they still go the November 2nd and go put their candle on the ground in front of the tomb and visit their family. So even though it's they're still Catholic, yes, they go to Catholic church, but they're inside, inside of them, their soul, their way of doing things is still the way they do voodoo thing, the way, the African way. Even the Protestant, they do the same thing. Although the Haitian Protestant are a little bit more radical. I mean, I have a little joke. I said Haitian Protestant are like the Jews of Haiti, because they're very they're very orthodox in the sense the way they practice. But even though they are orthodox in the way they practice Protestant, because they won't wear jewelries, they won't wear pants, they only wear skirts. Some of them don't wear relaxers in their hair because of the way they, part of their belief, but they still do that November 2nd. Okay, they still believe in certain things, certain myth in voodoo. They still believe it exists, because that's who they are. They can't run away from it. It's part of who they are. So whether they like it or not, whether they want to say they Protestant or the Catholic or whichever religion they want to choose to be, they still are inside of them. Deep down, they still are voodooism. That's who they are. And the sad thing is, Haitians are running away from who they are. They think when they're saying, well, I'm not voodooism, I don't believe in voodoo, I don't do voodoo, I'm Catholic, I'm Protestant, they consider that as something better than being a voodooism, because the image of voodoo has been so criticized for so long, has been defiled for so long. They made voodoo look so bad for so long, whether it's in Hollywood or the religious people who go down there to convert people. They made voodoo look so bad, and also the anti-superstition campaign, all these things made voodoo look so bad that everybody run away from who they are. They run away from it, and that's who they are. That's sad, because when you're running away from who you are, you end up being a nobody, basically. Because at the end of the day, your identity is part of who you are. It's part of how you think. It's also part of progress you made in life. I mean, let's look at the way Haiti is now today. When I say Haiti, I mean Port-au-Prince, because all the stuff that's going on right now, for instance, the kidnapping, the gang, the killing, the all the problems going on right now it's mostly centered in Port-au-Prince. I mean, most of the part of the country is more or less calm, but Port-au-Prince is where all the problems are happening because it's a big city. That's where most people are. Um, Most people go there. So yes, it's the problems are happening in Port-au-Prince right now are an identity crisis. It's a problem like identity. Why do I say it's an identity crisis? Because if you know who you are, you stand for something. People cannot tell you who you should be and what you should stand for. The problem with Haiti is most Haitians lost their identity, or they're running away from being Haitian. So they're running away so much. They spending their time trying to be something that they are not, and they end up being something they don't want to be. Because long time ago, as a Haitian person, you were known to be hardworking, educated most of the time because we value education a lot, and we loved we loved the culture in a sense, like we enjoy things that were Haitian. Nowadays, because we've been spending time running away, spending time trying to be something else, we give birth to a nation of people without identity, and that lack of identity is what drive us and what bring us where we are today. For instance, let me give an example. A lot of Haitian parents, when they go when they travel outside of Haiti and they have children, they don't transfer the culture to their kid they have in a different country. Let's say a Haitian family come to the United States and they have kids in the United States. Automatically, they identify that child as a U.S. citizen, even though legally that child is a U.S. citizen. But that's a child with a Haitian culture, a Haitian background. That culture should not be ignored. It should still be taught to your child, even though they were born in the United States. But what Haitian parents do is when they come to countries, like they go outside of the country, they teach their child to not be Haitian. How? They don't teach them the language. They don't teach them the Haitian culture. In a sense, like little stories that we know when we were kids. They don't teach those kids those things. They don't pass it down. They don't encourage the children to speak the language, because in their mind, because they've been told for so long that Creole is not a language, is a dialect. And which is not true. Creole is a language, and all language start from dialect. All language need dialect to become a language. So even if it was a dialect or probably a while ago, but now it's a language and it's formalized as a language. Everybody knows Creole is a language. It's actually being taught in a lot of colleges, universities in the United States right now as a language. But Haitian parents still don't think it's necessary for the children to learn Creole. They don't teach their children anything about Haiti, politics in Haiti. They don't take them, a lot of times, they don't even take them to Haiti. And when they become grown, those children, when they become adult, let's say they want to go to Haiti, the parents will say, no, don't go there. It's not safe. It's okay for that child, that adult, young adult child, to go anywhere around the world. I mean, it always amazes me how Haitians find it easier to go all the way to Israel, where there's conflict, where there's bomb exploding all the time. They feel safer to go there than to let their child go to Haiti, where most of the problem happening in Port-au-Prince. Not Haiti is not Port-au-Prince. Port-au-Prince has a real issue that needs to be dealt with. Yes, Haiti as a country in general has a lot of problems, and most of the problems, they come from poverty. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of lack of education. And like I was saying before, but Port-au-Prince is where the source of all the problem we're hearing in the news are coming from. That's where it's coming from. But even if that adult child want to go to somewhere, let's say they want to go to Saint Mark or Gonaïve or Cape Haitian, they will not allow them to go because they will say it's not safe to go. They don't want their children. A lot of Haitian parents don't pass on their culture to their children. And that's the problem today. Because they don't find value in their culture. Therefore, they don't find it necessary to pass it on to their children. And you have a bunch of kids, Haitian kids, growing up as something else. Children don't learn from their parents based on what their parents say. They learn from their parents based on what their parents do. If my parents are not practicing their culture, how am I going to know? How am I going to learn it? Who am I going to learn it from? So it's the same problem that happened in Haiti. A lot of parents in Haiti are running away from their culture. For instance, somebody in Haiti will be Protestant and they will send their child to a Catholic school because Catholic schools are valued to be better schools in Haiti. And in turn, when you take that child to Catholic school and you're looking at the curriculum of the schools in Haiti, there is nothing about Haitian culture in the school's curriculum. Nothing personally, I feel like there should have been, the Haitian schools curriculum should have been based on our culture. But there's nothing about Haitian culture in the curriculum in Haiti. They talk about France. I learned a lot about French history. I learned a lot about American history even. But nothing about Haitian culture. The only thing they teach Haitian in schools is when they were about Haitian culture is when they are really, really young, like when they're like in preschool, stuff like that. They have these little stories about Tonton Buki and Timalis. In fact, they have a little book they made for children to learn how to read and write that is called Timalis. And that story is a story that is, it's about two characters, Malice and Buki. And Malice is malice, like you heard the word malice, as you heard it right, evilness and wickedness. And Buki in Creation Creole, that means dumb, okay, which are two characters, evilness versus dumbness, and then evil prevail over stupidity. That's what they're teaching our children in school. Evil prevail over stupidity. So every children from preschool, they're teaching them to be malicious. Be like malice. Be evil. Be wicked. And you will take over people who are stupid and dumb. So really, it's a story of ignorance, exploitation, and basically that's what it is. Exploitation, ignorance, and wickedness. That's the story they're teaching preschoolers. I am a firm believer that if you really want to change a country, you start with 5-year-old and down. And if you're teaching your 5-year-old how to be wicked, how to be evil, and they equalize malice with smart, no wonder we have what we have today. Because you're basically telling children, for you to be respected, for you to make it in life, you have to get one over someone else. You have to be very malicious. You have to be very wicked. And they think that's smart. That's not smart. Okay? That's not being smart. That's just being wicked. That's just being evil. That's just being exploitative. If you really look at Haitian, the way the culture is, that culture they're teaching children, not Vodou. Because if they were going to their culture, their Vodou culture, it would have been better, because Vodou has great stories about how to be good, how to treat nature properly, how to respect people properly, how to help your fellow men. Because a lot of time they tell you, well, Vodou is about evilness. But if you you ask someone who says voodoo is about evilness to give you an example of evilness in voodoo, and they would say, oh, loup-garou. But the loup-garou really transferred into, in English, it translates into werewolf, okay? We don't have werewolf in our culture. Werewolf is it's an influence of European culture. Okay? It's a European influence. But Haitian took it and said, well, voodoo has loup-garou, but that's not voodoo. Werewolf is not voodoo. Werewolf is European. Or they'll tell you, well, give me another example of something bad in voodoo. They'll tell you, if they don't say loup-garou, they'll tell you, well, which is werewolf, they'll say, well, voodoo, we kill people. Okay. Who doesn't kill people? My answer to people who make those comments are always this. How many people do you know that voodoo kill? How many people? Well, I heard. It's always I heard someone so says. But guess what? I have on good authority how many people Catholic kills. Because if I go back to the crusade, I know how many people Catholic kills. And that's Christianity. I have that on good authority. But you do not have a good authority how many people voodoo kill. You can say so and so tells you that so and so kills so and so to voodoo. But you have no proof of it. Because they teach you. You have been taught for centuries to hate who you are. Self-hatred is the biggest problem with Haitian. Our identity crisis spawned from self-hatred. That being said, I want to leave you guys with this thought. I want you guys to think about that. What I just said. Think about it. As Haitian parents, shouldn't you really expose your child to your culture? Learn about your culture. Study about your culture. Research your culture before you criticize it or before you let somebody tell you who you are. By letting people tell you voodoo is bad, and by you accepting it, is you letting people telling you who you are. Don't let people tell you who you are. Find out who you are and teach your child once you find out who you are, who they are. Thank you. I'll see you guys next time.